While my daughter was fighting for life in the hospital, her husband was partying on a YACHT. What kind of world is this? The bright fluorescent lights buzzed above Emily's head, flickering with a monotony that matched the rhythm of the heart monitor beeping beside her daughter, Lily. Each pulse echoed the fragile nature of the moments they shared. Just outside, life continued unabated. Jake, her son-in-law, was somewhere on a yacht, celebrating life with his friends, blissfully ignorant of the war being waged within these sterile walls. Emily had always thought he adored Lily, but where was he now when they needed him most? Sleepless nights stretched into endless days, the weight of dread settling deep within her chest. This wasn't just any illness, it was a rare and life-threatening battle that reduced Lily to a shadow of herself, a vibrant teenager now confined to a hospital bed. Emily's heart ached, a nagging voice whispering that while she fought ferociously against despair, Jake was toasting to success in the Mediterranean sun. Her phone buzzed incessantly with his social media updates, a carousel of sun-soaked photographs that felt like daggers piercing her resolve. They laughed, they danced, they lived. Meanwhile, Emily sat by Lily's side, feeling the chill of abandonment grow heavier each hour. The anguish twisted in Emily's gut as she weighed her feelings of betrayal. How could someone so charming and full of life choose parties over family? Her thoughts raced, fraught with doubt and bitterness. Was it wrong to question his love? What kind of man would let his wife fight alone while he reveled in luxury? A battle raged within her, one fought not just for Lily's recovery but for the very fabric of their family, which now felt so ragged and torn. Desperation clawed at her thoughts, making it hard to breathe. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As if sensing her turmoil, Emily's estranged mother, Margaret, stepped into the room, a figure from her past that invoked both warmth and discomfort. The familiarity of her presence triggered buried memories that once filled Emily's life with love and support. Together, they forged an alliance of sorts, scouring through Jake's online escapades, examining posts that highlighted his carelessness dressed as charm. It felt surreal, sitting side by side with her mother in such a stark environment, their combined pain giving rise to an unexpected camaraderie. However, the underlying tension simmered, threatening to boil over in confrontations laced with unspoken words. With each passing moment, Emily's resolve hardened. A confrontation loomed. It was time to reclaim Lily's dignity, to unveil Jake for the negligent partner he had become. The image of her daughter's listless face haunted her thoughts, driving her toward a reckoning that would have unimaginable consequences. The stakes were too high, striking at the heart of family unity felt like endangering the very thing she fought to protect. Then, just as Emily steeled herself for the battle ahead, her phone chimed a message from the hospital. A new complication had emerged with Lily, shaking the already precarious ground beneath her. Heart racing, she clutched Margaret's hand tighter, the fear closing in around them. What did this mean for their fight? As the walls pressed in and her mind whirled, the intertwining threads of love, loyalty, and betrayal twisted tighter than ever. The fluorescent lights buzzed more insistently now, the beeping of the heart monitor a relentless reminder of the stakes at play. Emily's breath quickened at the sight of the message, a cold wave of dread washing over her. They had already seen too much suffering. The words on her screen blurred momentarily as tears threatened to escape. Taking a deep breath, she turned her focus back to Margaret, the warmth of her mother's hand providing a thin thread of comfort in the chaos. "We have to prepare ourselves for anything," Emily whispered, her voice barely breaking the tension in the room. Margaret nodded, her expression grave. "What did it say?" "They found an infection. They need to start a more aggressive treatment," Emily replied, her heart sinking further. "It means more complications, more risk." Margaret's face shifted, her usually soft features hardening into a mask of determination. "We need to advocate for her. If this treatment isn't what she needs, we'll fight them." Emily felt a surge of pride for her mother, an unexpected ally in a fight she had felt so alone in. It surged through her like electricity, igniting a hidden strength she had long thought extinguished. Suddenly, the walls of the hospital felt less suffocating. Guided by Margaret's resolve, Emily found her pulse steadying. They were in this battle together. "We cannot let Jake's absence define this moment for us," Emily said more firmly, determination building in her core. "Lily needs to see us fighting not just for her, but for our family's integrity. Her spirit can't be extinguished by neglect." Margaret embraced her, a fierce protector revealing herself amidst the chaos. "You've always had this fire, Emily. You just needed to rediscover it." As the nurses entered to discuss the new treatment plan, Emily began to feel a shift within her. The voices of medical professionals became a backdrop to her own internal dialogue. She was no longer a passive bystander, she was a mother, prepared to wield her voice strategically against anyone who stood in the way of her daughter's healing. Yet, the nagging question of Jake refused to loosen its grip. How could she confront him without losing her ability to communicate effectively for Lily's sake? The thought of his revelry felt like a chisel against her heart. She gritted her teeth, whispering to herself that this wasn't merely about revenge, but about owning her family's narrative. That evening, time blurred as Emily and Margaret crafted a strategy. They studied Jake's social presence meticulously, collecting ammunition for their confrontation. Every photo, every glib comment to his happy life contrasted sharply with Lily's plight. It was painful yet empowering, moving Emily closer to a confrontation that had become inevitable. Though a chill of apprehension threatened to seep into her thoughts, a flicker of anger ignited clarity, urging her to press forward. They would give Jake one chance to step into the light of reality, to demonstrate accountability, or face exposure. If she could expose his negligence, it would be a powerful move in reclaiming her daughter's dignity and her family's future. Emily's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Jake. A picture, undoubtedly another episode of his ego, nothing more than a snapshot of laughter and carefree moments, an insult delivered through digital means, juxtaposed cruelly against her struggle. It was the final straw, shattering any trace of doubt she had about confronting him. As Emily composed a message, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her. The moment had come. She was ready to spill the truth of her heart, to invite him into the brutal reality she had inhabited alone for too long. "Jake, we need to talk about Lily. It can't wait." The words fell like a stone into the silence of the room, and Emily's heart raced as she awaited his response. But what he didn't know about himself was about to be revealed. Emily paced the sterile hospital room, her heart pounding as the seconds stretched into eternity. The message to Jake hadn't simply been another text, it was a line drawn firmly in the sand. No more passive observations, no more swallowing her anger. She could feel a clarity settling in her chest, an undeniable strength that propelled her away from the shadows of her previous self. Margaret sat quietly, watching her daughter's transformation unfold. "Are you ready for what's coming?" she asked gently, concern mingled with admiration. Emily nodded, even though the question loomed larger than she felt prepared for. "I am. I have to be." The certainty was growing, fueled by the knowledge that her own voice could reclaim agency lost in the tumult of their family's recent history. It was time to confront Jake, to redefine the boundaries of their lives, and most importantly, to take a stand for Lily. The night dragged on, each tick of the clock echoing in Emily's mind as she crafted her approach. She knew this conversation would be fraught with raw emotion, but it also allowed her to articulate truths she had been too afraid to express. Would he minimize her feelings? Would he even care? She steeled herself, reminding her own heart about the stakes involved. Lily's health weighed against Jake's selfishness. Then the familiar ding of her phone broke through her thoughts. Jake's reply. A palpable tension lingered on the edges of her mind as she hesitated to read. Would he respond with the care she desperately sought, or continue his oblivious descent into his own world? The instant she opened the message, the dismissive tone dripped from his words like venom. "Can't we talk later? I'm busy." Something in her snapped. Anger flared, propelling her fingers into motion as she typed furiously. "You're busy? My daughter is in the hospital fighting for her life. I need you to be present, Jake, not partying on a yacht while we are in a nightmare. She pressed send, watching the blue bubbles signal that it was delivered. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Emotion tinged each breath, for despite the outburst, she reconsidered the ramifications of her words. This had transcended a mere communication about their daughter. No, this was a confrontation about responsibilities, about gratitude and the sincerity of relationships that defined their family. Moments passed painfully slow, anticipation radiating from her. If he chose to brush this aside, it wouldn't wane merely as another conversation lost to his self-absorbed whims. This was about accountability. The phone buzzed again. Jake's reply was swift, defensive, and dismissive, a recipe for frustration. You're overreacting, Em. I'm here for you guys. You know that. How expertly he deflected her concern, she thought bitterly. His inability to own his part of this familial fracture stoked the embers of her resolve. They weren't merely fighting for Lily's health anymore, they were battling for honesty, for respect, and for a sense of unity that had slipped through their fingers. Being present means more than just words, Jake. It's about action. I need to know you're actually in this, she fired back, her breath steadying as hope entwined with anger. The waiting felt interminable now, as she continued to engage with her own thoughts. She could not afford to falter, the stakes were infinitely higher. Deep down, a whisper nudged her to test his boundaries further. Jake's next response flowed in, "What do you want from me? I did my part. I deserve to enjoy life." This sentence ignited something profound in Emily, fueling a realization that had been lurking in the background of her psyche. His enjoyment came at a cost she could no longer remain silent about. She was ready to challenge him, ready to untangle the facade he wore so comfortably. The moment had finally arrived. The questions surged again. How far was she willing to go? What would it take for Jake to understand the reality of their situation? The notion of confrontation filled her with both eagerness and fear, but empowerment eclipsed the latter. As she drew in a breath, poised to respond, a new wave of determination washed over her. In the dark, ever-expanding chasm between them, she could sense the crucial battle ahead. Jake, this isn't just about me or you anymore. This is about our family's legacy. It's time to face the facts about who you've become. The tension crackled in the air around her as she realized that she was standing at the precipice of a defining moment. The confrontation was shifting from defensive bitterness to something that felt wildly liberating. Would he step back into a reality rooted in accountability? Or would he refuse to bend even in the face of his own reflection? There was no turning back now. The fight for her family was on, and with it came the unsettling possibility of what must follow. Emily's heart raced as the gravity of her words sank in, each syllable feeling like a challenge thrown into the void between them. She expected silence in return, but, to her surprise, the phone buzzed again almost instantly. This time, it felt different, more defiant. Family's legacy? Jake's text flashed across the screen, laced with dismissive sarcasm. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Her pulse quickened, the urge to respond boiling within her. But instead of firing back, she paused to gather her thoughts. Jake always had a way of twisting her words, reducing her fears to melodrama. It was time for a different approach. She needed clarity, and not just for him, but for herself. What did she want this confrontation to become? With the quiet hum of medical machinery in the background, Emily turned away from the glow of her phone. She gazed out the window, where the faint outlines of city lights shimmered against the night sky. Reflection settled in. After years of putting Jake on a pedestal, now was the time to confront him as an equal. She had spent so long navigating their relationship on his terms, carrying both the burdens of motherhood and the emotional weight of their marriage alone. Taking a deep breath, she dismissed the notion of collapsing into self-doubt. She wasn't just demanding accountability, she was reclaiming her narrative. With renewed conviction, Emily returned her focus to her phone. There's nothing dramatic about wanting a partner who is present, she typed slowly, allowing her words to resonate. You've chosen pleasure over responsibility too many times, and it impacts all of us. As she pressed send, a shiver ran down her spine. Had she breached an invisible barrier? The stakes had escalated from a simple request to a relaying of grievances that had lingered under the surface for far too long. Jake's reply followed quickly, a mixture of indignation and denial. "You're painting me as the villain here. What about my needs? What about my life?" His words triggered something inside her, a simmering indignation that had been restrained for too long. He was pointing fingers when they both knew this wasn't a one-sided issue. Had he truly forgotten the sacrifices she'd made or the dreams she'd shelved for their family? Being present wasn't just about sharing the physical space, it was about the willingness to embrace the weight of their choices together. "Your needs matter too, but don't you see? It's a two-way street," she replied carefully. "I'm not saying you can't enjoy life. I'm saying it can't come at the cost of our family's well-being." As her fingers tapped out the message, clarity washed over her. This wasn't solely about Jake's behavior, this was about establishing a healthy dialogue about their lives moving forward. She was beginning to see potential for growth, not just for her but for Jake as well. He could be better, they could be better. Yet the uncertainty loomed. What if Jake remained anchored in his perspective? Would their encounter drive him further away? The next notification pinged as if punctuating her worries. "I didn't realize I was giving you this much power over my life. Maybe you should just focus on yourself." The sting of his words ricocheted within her, but she pushed through the anger. "Power is about choices, not control," she typed. "I'm choosing to fight for our family, Jake. Not out of weakness, but because of the love I have for you and Lily." Silence stretched between them, almost deafening. She steeled herself, waiting for his response, uncertainty curling around her. With every passing second, she reflected on how far she had come. The old Emily would have simply accepted his deflection, but now, she embraced the tension. A confrontation wasn't just about conflict, it was about defining her space, showing Jake there was another way forward. Finally, his message arrived, mere words waiting to reshape her resolve. "Who are you to teach me about responsibility?" A chill washed over her as the implications dawned. In that moment, Emily realized that not only was she fighting for Lily's well-being, but also against the shadow of a partnership that had stifled her growth for years. What lay ahead was still uncertain, but this wasn't simply a fight, it was a strategy for the future she wanted. If she could uproot the power dynamics between them, perhaps they could build something stronger atop the foundation of their past struggles. One thing was clear, this was no longer just a conversation about Jake, it was an intersection with her identity, an exploration of her own worth. As she readied to respond, the air was thick with unresolved tension. Would Jake finally take a step towards acknowledging her point of view, or would he remain ensnared by his defensiveness? Either way, a shift was imminent, one that would require Emily to be even bolder than before. "All right, Jake," she typed, determination threading through her. "Let us start with the truth. The moment of reckoning is here." The screen stayed dark, but their story was just beginning, and Emily could feel the tides turning. Emily's fingers hovered above her phone, her pulse racing with a mix of trepidation and ferocity. She anticipated Jake's response, it felt akin to teetering on the edge of a precipice. This was not merely about a text conversation, it was the beginning of a profound transformation. "Who am I?" she whispered to herself as if seeking affirmation from the air around her. She had spent years lost in the shadows of others' choices, minimizing her contributions, and now it was time to reclaim her place in the light. The weight of years flooded her mind, memories of pushing aside her dreams, interests, and even her sense of self to support Jake and their family. It was disheartening to acknowledge how regularly she sidestepped her desires for fear of causing conflict. She sighed, the inhale punctuated with clarity. It dawned upon her that Jake's insistence on dismissing her emotions was also a manifestation of his own shortcomings. In his world, she had become both the nurturer and the scapegoat. It wasn't that she had never advocated for herself, moments of silence had simply grown too comfortable. The facade of harmony often masked a deeper chasm of unfulfilled needs. Resolutely, she crafted her response, channeling every ounce of her inner strength. I am your wife. A mother to our daughter. I am not your enemy, nor a voice to silence. I come to you not just as someone who demands responsibility but as a partner who deserves respect. As she sent the message, she envisioned the words hanging in the air, a palpable challenge. She had made it clear that her presence in his life was of significance, not a burden. A faint hum of anxiety coursed through her, but it was countered by a surge of empowerment. This was revolutionary for her, a singular moment that transcended their history. Suddenly, a thought gripped her. What if their journey could evolve into one where the power lay not in the defense of self but in the collaboration of mutual understanding? Could he, in this moment of confrontation, recognize that partnership was not about dominance but shared accountability? The screen light flickered again, yanking her from contemplation. You're just feeling guilty, Jake's message read. You've ignored your own life chasing after me. The accusation hit hard, stoking her frustration. Yet, instead of succumbing to anger, Emily took stock of this moment. Should she contest his claims or use this as a launching pad for deeper revelations? There was a possibility hidden within his words. Guilt was his admission of awareness. What if I am feeling guilty, she countered, slowly typing with precision. But that doesn't mean I'm not valid. Maybe it shows how much I care. We've both lost ourselves in the chaos. It's not just about you anymore. I've got my dreams too, and I'm ready to rediscover them. As she hit send, strength surged through her. It was strange yet freeing to express her own vulnerabilities while still demanding clarity. The fragility in her heart felt like a delicate dance between assertion and empathy. Her phone buzzed again, and dread momentarily sneaked back in. I didn't sign up for this, Emily. I need freedom, not a guilt trip. Those words echoed in her mind like a haunting refrain. Freedom meant different things to different people, but she realized then that submitting to Jake's notion of freedom often carried an obligation and emotional detachment that suffocated her spirit. Emily felt a transformation begin to stir within. She envisioned herself no longer as Jake's wife who yielded in quiet desperation but as Emily, a woman with dreams unfolding anew. She wasn't merely going to stand still anymore. This exchange had become less about Jake's shortcomings and more about the woman she longed to be. The silence that followed weighed heavily on her. What revelations lay on the horizon? Would Jake join her on this path toward rediscovery, or would he remain ensnared in the superficiality of his desires? As the minutes passed, she fortified her resolve. She knew now was the time to embrace discomfort, the very source of growth. Her heart whispered promises of courage, the kind that would help her navigate the intensity of this life-altering conversation. Jake, she wrote, tone unwavering. Let us not just redefine our roles, let us explore who we can become together. It's time for both of us to grow. In that instant, Emily felt as if she were igniting a profound spark that could illuminate the shadows of their relationship. Whatever awaited her, there was no turning back. The chapter of her life had no choice but to unfold into something entirely new. She could hear the soft beeping of machines around her and took comfort in the tangible resilience of her surroundings. But just as quickly, another thought flashed through her mind with startling clarity. Was she truly ready for what lay ahead, for the courage that lay before her? With the next message poised on the edge of her fingertips, uncertainty lingered, and one burning question consumed her thoughts. How far was she willing to go to confront the truth? Emily stared at her phone, the silence in the room both oppressive and suffocating. The weight of Jake's last message hung in the air, a stark reminder of the emotional chasm between them. As each second ticked by, anxiety collided with determination within her. She had been afraid of confrontation for too long, afraid of the chaos it might unleash on their seemingly stable home. But now, in her heart, she recognized this confrontation as a necessary step toward reclaiming her identity. In the stillness, she could almost feel the remnants of her past self peeling away, layer by layer. God, what am I doing? The thought churned through her mind, rapidly ushering in a million uncertainties. Was she risking everything? Her marriage, the family unit they had built? But hadn't she already lost herself completely? Emily picked up a pen and notebook from the clutter on the table, surrounded by the art supplies that always brought her joy but had been largely untouched in the last year. As she began to write, her thoughts spilled onto the pages with a fervor she hadn't felt in ages. I am Emily. I am not just Jake's wife or Ava's mother. I need to rediscover the woman who once dreamed of becoming an artist, the one who planned for exhibitions, who longed to express herself through color and creativity. With every stroke of the pen, her resolve crystallized. She wrote about her dreams, the locations she had wanted to paint, and the feelings she had to evoke. Each word reshaped her reality, weaving an identity that felt more like her than ever. The fear that had tied her down dissolved into a stream of purpose. Yet the reality of Jake loomed large. Could he understand this shift? Could he accept that her journey towards self-affirmation wasn't an attack on him, but rather a transformative process for both of them? Did he hold on to the idea that her growth would mean his diminishment? As she penned the thoughts she had always kept at bay, she started to see Jake through a different lens. Every interaction, every choice he made, seemed dictated by an expectations loop, one where both their happiness became interwoven with how well they fit into predetermined roles. What if he was as lost as she had been, clinging to a definition of freedom that didn't allow room for vulnerability? As the last word flowed onto the page, a shift pulsed through her, igniting something that had lain dormant. Emily closed the notebook slowly, absorbing the gravity of what she had just shared with herself. The stunning clarity came with another realization. She felt lighter, no longer shackled to a history defined by self-neglect. Fighting against the next wave of apprehension, she hesitantly tapped her phone's screen. After a moment of deliberation, she typed, "Jake, I need you to be willing to support our individual growth. I need you as my ally, not my judge." Before she could second-guess herself, she hit send. In that moment, the implications of her statement washed over her, accompanied by a surge of fear and the unmistakable flicker of hope. She had laid her heart bare again. Was this how strength felt, biting, raw, yet invigorating? The response came quicker than she anticipated. "You're asking for too much, Em. I don't think I can give you that right now." A mixture of frustration and sadness gnawed at her, but she refused to back down. Instead, she contemplated her next steps. Was this mere resistance on his part just another layer in their troubled dynamics, or was it an opportunity for deeper dialogue? Emily spent the evening wrapped in reflection, weighing his words against her aspirations. The room simmered with a new energy, a quiet storm of potential yet to be explored. In the blurred lines of sacrifice and ambition, she felt a profound truth emerging: growth often comes with discomfort. She made a mental promise to uncover pieces of herself that had long lain neglected. Fostering her creativity, pursuing art workshops, maybe even reconnecting with friends, each notion reignited her passion for life. But amidst this burgeoning creativity, another question lingered. Would Jake join her on this journey of self-discovery or resist it, fearing the changes it would bring? As evening pulled the light from the room, Emily's resolve continued to strengthen. Navigating the dual realities of being a wife and an individual would demand immense courage. She knew the fullness of her answer wouldn't come overnight. With that uncertainty gripping her, she realized embracing the unknown was just the beginning. It wasn't merely about personal fulfillment, it was about redefining what they represented together and apart. And from the depths of her being surged a voice, firm and undeterred: "I cannot allow fear to dictate my reality anymore." With the challenges ahead flashing before her like an unwritten canvas, she felt ready to paint. The question remained, however, was she prepared for the truth behind the choices that lay before them? Emily awoke the next morning with a mix of trepidation and anticipation. The sunlight filtering through the curtains illuminated the remnants of her creative scattered dreams. Her notebook lay open on the table, pages filled with intentions that now seemed both fragile and formidable. She felt an urgency, a necessity to solidify the resolve she had felt the night before. With slow, deliberate movements, she brewed coffee, the rich aroma filling her quickly quieting space. Each sip nudged her towards the day, a day swathed in uncertainty, where each decision could ripple through their familial structure like a stone cast into still waters. She recalled Jake's terse message, the realization hitting her hard. She asked for a partnership he wasn't ready to offer. Could she proceed alone, emboldened by the notion that self-growth might ultimately benefit them both? Feeling empowered yet vulnerable, Emily grabbed her phone, contemplating whether to reach out to her friend Sarah, an artist who had often encouraged her aspirations in the past. They had drifted apart, lost in the tide of obligations and the suffocating routine of daily life. She paused, letting the possibilities churn in her mind. Could reconnecting with Sarah be a lifeline or a distraction from deeper family issues? In a moment of impulsiveness, she pressed call. The anticipation thrummed through her, as each ring echoed her longing for connection and validation. When Sarah answered, her warm, familiar voice cascaded over the phone line, and a wave of nostalgia washed over Emily. Emily. It's been forever. What is going on? I want to get back into painting and thought of you, Emily confessed, her heart racing as she navigated the delicate balance between enthusiasm and vulnerability. Sarah's excitement cracked through the static of the phone. Are you kidding? Let us do it. We could start a workshop or something. It would be so freeing. The idea took root immediately in Emily's mind, bursting with potential and adventure. They spent the next half hour discussing local galleries, techniques, and the trials of balancing art with life, a conversation that rekindled a facet of herself she thought she might never reclaim. After they hung up, the weight of her earlier conversation with Jake settled heavily on her chest again, but this time it felt manageable. She acknowledged she was moving toward a horizon where conflict and creation could coexist. While she was invigorated by her discussions with Sarah, she sensed an impending confrontation with Jake that would require all the strength she had cultivated. The rest of the day unfolded in a series of small yet significant actions. She pulled her art supplies from their dusty sanctuary in the closet. The colors seemed to call to her, promising a resurgence of inspiration and passion. She arranged her tools methodically, as if preparing for a battle, each brush and pencil awakening her dormant creativity. However, a storm of doubts brewed in her mind. How would Jake react once he realized she was serious about pursuing her passion? Would he be resentful, or might he ultimately find value in her newfound drive? As evening descended, she knew they needed to talk. The conversation would prompt them to confront their individual needs and fears directly, a pivotal step out of their stagnant cycle. She considered how to phrase her thoughts, wanting to create an opening for understanding rather than defensiveness. Just as she resolved to speak to him, Ava bounded into the room, jarring her from her thoughts. The little girl's laughter was infectious, grounding Emily in the moment. But soon, Ava's innocence faded into memory as she remembered Jake's last response, a stark reminder of how much was at stake. In the quiet tension of the night, she inhaled deeply, the air rich with possibilities and uncertainties. Was she strong enough to navigate this next phase? The unease blossomed within her, yet a persistent excitement hummed in her veins. She sighed, aware that the moment of truth awaited her. Tomorrow, they would need to hash out their fears, and perhaps, for the first time in a long while, they could find a path toward a new understanding. But was Jake ready to confront his own fears as she was? The thought lingered in her mind like a shadow, ominously touching the edges of her resolve. Would this reunion of selves mark the beginning of their confrontation, or would the wall between them defiantly hold strong? Emily woke the next morning, the sun streaming through the window illuminating the chaos of her thoughts. Last night's conversation with Sarah felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, but uncertainty still loomed. The canvas of her life lay in wait blank, yet charged with potential, begging for her to make a mark. She prepared for the day with renewed focus, the morning routine fueling her commitment to change. Coffee brewed as she gazed out the window, the mundane world outside looking vibrant and full of possibility. Each sip filled her with a spark of energy and reminded her of her purpose, creating art, reclaiming her identity. Despite the excitement of her upcoming workshop with Sarah, her mind drifted to Jake. The looming conversation shadowed her every thought. How could she bridge the chasm that had grown between them? She knew confronting her fears meant navigating his as well. Did he even understand the depth of her desire to create, to be more than just a supportive partner and mother? While tending to Ava, her little girl glided into the living room, still in pajamas. The innocence in her eyes reminded Emily of what she stood to gain, why it was essential to fight for her passions not only for herself but as a model for her daughter. She decided then, she would be the kind of woman who embraced her dreams and inspired Ava to do the same. Morning turned to midday, and Emily's anticipation transformed into a mixture of excitement and dread. When Jake returned home for lunch, she knew the moment had arrived. Setting the table with a deliberate touch, she allowed her mind to construct the conversation like an artist visualizing a painting. Each word would be a brushstroke, carefully placed, yet free enough to allow the emotions to manifest. "Hey, can we talk?" she began, feeling the anxiety tingle through her fingers. Jake looked up, surprised, but nodded, his brows slightly furrowed. "Sure, what's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I've been thinking a lot about us, our dreams. What we want for ourselves and Ava." He shifted in his chair, a mix of concern and curiosity playing across his face. She pressed on, her voice steadier now, fueled by the clarity she'd found in recent days. "I met Sarah again, and we're planning to hold an art workshop. I really want to dive back into my painting." The silence enveloped them both. Emily's heart raced as she watched Jake's expression ebb and flow between surprise and bewilderment. She needed him to understand that this wasn't just a whim, it was a fundamental piece of her identity begging for resurrection. "That's great, I guess," Jake finally replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "But what about everything else? The house, the family?" She met his gaze firmly, sensing his hesitation. "I know family comes first, but I want a life beyond being just a wife or a mother. I need to explore who I am as an individual." His eyes narrowed, communication falling into an uncomfortable silence. Emily could almost see the gears turning in his mind. Had he ever contemplated her needs or her dreams beyond the obligations of their shared responsibilities? "Can you understand why this is important for me?" She pressed, her voice softening, revealing her vulnerability. Jake exhaled sharply, a flicker of guilt crossing his features. "I just didn't think you felt that way. I mean, I've been so absorbed in my own work, I didn't see." The crux of their conversation hung thick in air, both teetering on the cusp of revelations yet fearful of falling into the chasm beneath. Emily felt a surge of hope and frustration. This was the moment she feared, yet it also held the potential for change. "Maybe," Jake said cautiously, "we both have stuff to figure out. But we need to do that together." She felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. Could they rebuild their partnership anew? The opening was there, but would they both step through it, or would fear keep them rooted in discontent? As their dialogue unfolded, the slightest shift in his demeanor signaled a willingness to engage. They were walking a tightrope of understanding, with the promise of resolution hovering tantalizingly close. But could a renewed commitment be forged in their uncertainty? The tension charged the air, and Emily realized her journey was far from over. It was not just a question of rediscovering her art, but also understanding the depths of their shared struggles, emerging in unison or redefining the norms they had lived by. As she caught his eye, she sensed the fragility of their beginning. With honesty as their only anchor, could they build a bridge from their fear into a partnership enriched by mutual growth? The questions lingered, a haunting yet beautiful melody palpably resonating between them, waiting to unfold. Emily woke the next morning with the resolve to take control of her own narrative. The reminiscence of her conversation with Jake still tinged the air, igniting both fear and excitement within her. She realized now that seeking her individuality demanded courage and that courage was about to be tested again. As she sipped her coffee, she felt the familiar tension of unresolved conflict squeezing her heart. She couldn't shake the thought of her art and the burgeoning project she was developing with Sarah. This workshop was not about merely reclaiming paintbrushes. It represented her desire to step into her shoes as an artist and as a woman. Yet, she also grappled with Jake's guarded demeanor. How could she encourage him to embrace this shift without inadvertently dismissing his own aspirations? Once her daughter Ava had left for a playdate, she seized the moment for introspection. Emily sat quietly in her studio, surrounded by half-finished canvases that whispered tales of her dormant dreams. The vibrant colors mingled, awaiting her reawakening. She dared to explore an idea that had surfaced in her heart, a more radical change, one that could extend beyond the studio. Perhaps it was time to speak openly about her aspirations with the wider community. Attending artists' gatherings could lead to serials of inspiration, opportunities, and connections. Feeling a swell of determination, she reached for her phone, scrolling through social media groups dedicated to local artists. Joining a few seemed the next logical step. Could she combine this with her workshop? The thrill of possible collaboration electrified her thoughts. Yet amid her excitement, a shadow loomed. Would Jake support her in this? Would they resonate with this new rhythm, or would the melody of their relationship break? That evening, she approached him again, bolstered by her earlier breakthroughs. Jake, I've been thinking that maybe expanding my network could benefit my art further. I'd love to connect with local artists, perhaps even share our workshop ideas with them. What do you think? Jake paused with a thoughtful expression, then nodded. It sounds good, even though it's a lot, you know? I just don't want you to overextend yourself. His caution was understandable, but it fueled a spark of frustration within her. She didn't want to be reined in any longer. I need to do this, Jake. It's not about the workload, it's about creating a life where I can thrive as an artist while maintaining my responsibilities, and that includes being your partner and Ava's mom. Another silence filled the space, but this time Emily felt it differently. She noticed Jake processing her words, contemplating the potential consequences. In this fragile moment, she decided not to withdraw her ambitions. Instead, she laid bare her fears of rejection and failure, opening up a window into the depths of her inner self. What if this is the key to becoming the person you know I can be? For Ava, too. Finally, Jake responded, maybe it could be what we both need. But let us keep checking in with one another. I don't want us to drift apart. Emily felt both relieved and challenged. His words echoed with potential while also haunting her with the fear of misunderstanding. This was her moment of reckoning. Could she balance her needs with the equity of their relationship? That night, she settled down with a sketchbook, releasing her anxious energy by doodling concepts for her art. Each stroke drew her further from doubt. Her vision came alive amidst the swirling linework. This was not just about art, it was a protest against the life she had locked away to meet others' expectations. As her thoughts flowed with the ink, Emily suddenly found inspiration in an unexpected place. The scene reminded her of a fleeting memory, a painting she had once admired from across a crowded gallery. Her heart raced. What had originally seemed like an insurmountable gap within her life had ignited a discovery. It became crystal clear that she needed to not only redefine her journey but take time to reflect on those influences that moved her soul. For the first time in years, she felt not just excited, but empowered, prepared to fight not just for her art, but for her whole self. She noted something on the page, a mysterious echo vibrating from deeper within, a call to action. As she reached for her phone again, Emily realized her artistic silence was finally breaking free. What was on the horizon felt unimaginable yet thrilling. Each new connection would be a step closer not only towards her art but her truest self. But just as she began to assemble a plan, her thoughts raced back to Jake's face, and an unsettling doubt crept in. Would this newfound artistic freedom lead her to deepen her relationship or widen the gap? With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath. The next step was calling her, the promise of revitalization echoing louder than ever. But it would require not just her efforts, it would mean facing the uncharted territories of her relationship again. With a pen poised over her notepad, she asked herself one final question: was she willing to risk everything for her dream? The answer began to surface in flickering emotions, half excited, half terrified. The weight of that realization settled in her chest. The moment had arrived for another conversation, a different note entirely. And perhaps, this time, it might resonate harmoniously between them. With newfound determination, Emily rose from the table, ready to face the music. Would they embrace the symphony of shared dreams, or would discord become their narrative? Emily woke up the next day with renewed determination swirling within her like vibrant paints on canvas. Gone were the shadows of self-doubt that had lingered like an unwanted guest. The previous night's conversation with Jake had been a pivotal turning point, igniting a spark in her she hadn't felt in years. She was no longer just the mother and partner defined by someone else's ambitions. She was Emily, an artist eager to reclaim her identity. As the sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating her journal filled with aspirations, she knew the next step was clear. She would not only participate in the workshop with Sarah, but she would take the initiative to reach out to other local artists. The thought of collaboration invigorated her, and she could already visualize a support network of creative spirits rallying around her budding dreams. While brewing her morning coffee, Emily picked up her phone and drafted a message to Sarah. "I'm ready to take the workshop to the next level. Let us invite more local artists to connect and collaborate. I need this community." The words flowed out, each syllable a declaration of her rebirth. Once she hit send, a wave of euphoria washed over her. This was the first step towards building momentum, and she could feel the energy vibrating with potential. Yet, the undertow of anxiety still tugged at her, reminding her that this journey wouldn't merely require her creativity, it would demand openness and honesty with Jake. Every step they took would need to be taken together. Later that evening, after Ava returned from her playdate, Emily gathered her courage. She took a deep breath, settling herself across from Jake at the dining table, which now held more than just their everyday meals. It was a space for dialogue and growth. "Jake, I wanted to talk more about my art," she began. His gaze flickered with interest, and the uncertainty that had been brewing within her began to soften. "I've reached out to Sarah about expanding the workshop to include more artists. I believe it could lead to exciting new opportunities." Jake nodded, his brows knitted together. "That sounds good, but you know I worry about how busy life can get. How will you manage this? I don't want you to feel overwhelmed." "I appreciate your concern," she replied, her voice steady. "But I'm not just chasing fleeting moments of inspiration. This is about my identity. I want to be the best version of myself, not just for me, but for us and Ava too. I need your support in this, not just your caution." A silence enveloped the room, thick with possibility. She saw his expression shift, conflict brewing behind his eyes. He hesitated, opening and closing his mouth like he was rehearsing what to say. She pressed on, "We've both lost sight of who we are in this partnership. I want to re-establish that balance with our ambitions and responsibilities intertwining rather than chasing us apart." Jake's tension eased slightly, and he leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "So you think this is the way forward for us?" "I believe so," she affirmed, her heart racing with hope. "But it's going to require ongoing communication and collaboration. We need to be allies in our individual pursuits." He finally exhaled, the weight of his defenses seeming to lift. "You're right, Em. I've let my own work cloud my vision of our life together. I want to be there for you, and I know I need to change my approach. I didn't realize how much I had distanced myself from sharing that journey with you." Her heart soared as his willingness to engage crystallized into a commitment. "Then we can make this work together," she proposed, excitement bubbling within her. "It doesn't mean we have to abandon our responsibilities, it means we can nurture our relationship and our dreams in tandem." The atmosphere in the room shifted, like the release of a long-held breath. They exchanged genuine smiles, and in that moment, Emily felt the barriers eroding between them. Fragments of isolation gave way to reinforced unity. As they transitioned their conversation towards how each of them could pursue their desires alongside their family obligations, Emily realized the depth of her transformation. She was no longer a woman defined by circumstances, she was a woman who had taken control of her narrative. The days rolled into a whirlwind of creative force. The workshop flourished beyond her expectations, and the conversations with Sarah became fueling passions. Each evening, she worked on her art with fervor, the strokes of passion overflowing onto the canvas, mirroring the evolution of her spirit. In tandem, Jake became more involved with Ava, often surprising Emily with small gestures of understanding, re-establishing his role as a present partner. He made a conscious effort to engage in their daughter's interests, creating a new family routine that balanced both parental duties with the pursuit of their individual dreams. As weeks passed, Emily embraced her thriving workshop and the growing camaraderie amongst artists. She even planned for an exhibition, showcasing the collective work they'd created together. They rallied to support one another in their unique artistic journeys, and Emily felt the intoxicating rush of empowerment ripple through her. One evening, as she proudly stood amidst her artwork, surrounded by supportive friends, family, and new artist acquaintances, she recognized a profound truth about her journey. Transformation was not a destination, it was a continual process of self-discovery. Through challenges and triumphs, she and Jake had forged an alliance rooted in respect and understanding. They had become a dynamic duo, sharing both the burdens of parenthood and the jubilance of pursuing their individuality. For the first time, she felt a profound sense of achievement, not just as an artist, but as a mother and a partner willing to advocate for her dreams, a realization of her competency, her creativity, and her unwavering spirit. As she stood before the crowd at her exhibition, a newfound clarity washed over her. Emily was no longer just a wife or a mother, she was an artist, a ripe palette ready to fill the world with color. And she knew that this journey had only just begun. Now, her heart thrummed with excitement at what lay ahead, igniting a fierce desire within her to continue crafting her narrative. Support the movement of overcoming and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.